what do you think about concepts of like degrowth, and transition frameworks like that? Like, do you think that's realistic in terms
Yes,
of,
I do. I think that one of the things, and we're going to talk about it in the class in a little bit, is this thing called the circular economy. So that, for example, um, there is sulfur in coal. So when you burn the coal, it produces this thing called sulfur dioxide, which is a noxious, nasty chemical. So the sulfur is taken out of the coal in many plants. Well, sulfur is also used as a very important industrial chemical because sulfuric acid, which is H2SO4, is a very important part of steelmaking, for example. So it turns out that exactly the same amount of sulfur that is taken out of coal is that which is used in the process of making sulfuric acid. But we don't use it that way. We mine sulfur from the ground. There's no need to do that. So that if we can develop an economy where the waste product of one process is the feed product of another process, then we will have done a number of things. We will have reduced the waste that that impacts on the environment. We will use less energy. We will reduce the environmental impact of mining things like sulfur. So we've got to start thinking about that kind of project. Not going to be easy. There's actually some time ago there was a section in the old Bell Laboratories, called Industrial Ecology, which did exactly that, which looked at the waste products of one thing and figured out how they could be used in another. It's not going to be easy. We're going to have to change a lot of the processes, but that is certainly possible. And right now, we measure success by how much the GDP grows. We have to stop that. We have to look at, as you say, a zero growth economy. Again, it's not going to be easy. None of these things are going to be easy, but they can be done and they should be done.
yeah, absolutely. I think what you brought up about circular economies, especially as related to mining, I didn't know that about sulfur, that
No,
waste
no,
product
no.
can be
Very
used.
few people know it. It's not. I mean, that's part
Yeah.
of the problem. People don't know this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know mining is such a big issue related to the increase in renewables. I think it was Alexander Dunlap who did a study on the percentage. I'm gonna botch the percentage, but I think it's like if we make a full transition to renewables, it'll increase the rare earth minerals that need to be mined by like 60% or
Oh
something.
yeah, right. No, no. The geopolitics of this are terribly important because the materials, cobalt, selenium, that are needed for lithium, that are needed for the just transition, because those materials make much stronger magnets than the steel we use now. That's very important for the efficiency of electric vehicles, for example. They occur in some countries that we do not relate well with, as well as those countries have few environmental protections. So the mining of those minerals is quite profoundly important. They're called rare earth. They're not rare, they're just difficult to get in pure form. They exist combined with a bunch of other things. And one of the leaders in the processing of those things is China.
Mm.
Well, we're not exactly on friendly relationships with China at the moment. And there are many, many reasons why we need to be friendlier to China. My wife and I have gone several times to a thing called the Chautauqua Institute, which is outside of Buffalo, New York, which is a very interesting place. And the sessions were of former Foreign Service officers. As a result of my work with the nonprofit, I got to know the Foreign Service pretty well. In any event, these Foreign Service people, differing opinions on a variety of things, were unanimous in thinking that we are totally mishandling our relationships with China. China wants to be seen as a player on the big field. and a very big aspect of their policies are saving face. That's why Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taiwan was such a disaster. I mean, we just need to learn how to relate, particularly with China, but with other countries as well. It's just they are critically important. They produce solar cells much more efficiently than we do, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot of work to be done. You have a big job ahead of you, you young people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's such an important concern with China and how that relationship is being handled because like it or not, we are incredibly dependent on China. So
Oh, we ever.
yeah.
Right, 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 right.
And no amount of tariffs is really gonna
Well, yeah, well, another story. I mean, among the things that is necessary to be done is to get involved in the political process so that climate change becomes a winnable election stance rather than a negative one, because we certainly need a government in power, both in Congress and in the executive branch, that will promote some of the policies that need to be done. I mean, in some cases, the government is essential. I mean, the government has played a really interesting, sometimes unseen and unknown role. For example, the military supported a great deal of work and purchase of solar cells. Why? Because in far-flung bases in Afghanistan and Iraq and other places, if you transport oil by tanker to those tankers are in trouble. They get bombed, they get attacked. So it paid the government to pay extra to use solar energy to fuel the site. Well, the large purchase of those solar cells at that point, quite expensive, drove the price down. So it was government action in part that drove the price of solar cells down. The government can play a really important role in this whole process, but it has to decide to do that. And we have to elect people that will decide to do that.